Clint, and I've seen some people jumping in on this thing as well. The Texans have Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard both under contract and have pretty good contracts. They can move on from Shaq Mason. He's under contract, though. Juice Scruggs, they just moved up in the second round 2 years ago, and they drafted him. They just drafted Blake Fisher last year in the second round. Obviously, Kenyon Green is still there, and they've got Patterson as well, who started at the center spot. So they've got a lot of guys that can be options. They could run back with the same offensive line if they want to. How many guys for you? How many guys on the starting offensive line next year do you think should not come from what's in this building?
How many guys should not come from?
Yeah. Like how many guys that are in the building right now?
Do I think will or should?
Let's go both. Let's go. How many do you think will?
I think Laramie Tunsil will be the left tackle. I think Titus Howard will be the right tackle, and I think Juice Scruggs will factor into the middle somehow.
So you think there's potential for two new
to
spots.
Be gone? Yes, probably the guards. If they really want him to be a center, but I don't know how quickly that communication issue is solved in a year where you played more guard than you did center, or stayed injured, or played guard more than you did center.
So you think Patterson's probably not in as a starter?
Yeah, boy, Ron, that'd be it. I mean, to admit that you missed on Shaq, that you missed on Kenyon Green, and that you missed on Juice Scruggs, I think is a lot for this team for this organization to admit. Yeah, I think they push Juice Scruggs being in this lineup somehow, somewhere, which I think is right. I think Juice Scruggs is. I do. I got a lot of.
And you think Blake is still on the bench?
Yes. I do not believe Blake is not, as long as you got Titus and Laramie on the team. Now that's what I think is going to happen. Now what I think should happen is I think they should try their damnedest to move Laramie Tunsil, and the reasons that everybody will call me crazy for it is the reason why I'm even saying it, because he's tradable. All right? I mean, you're like right now you ain't moving Kenyon Green.
Yeah, he's tradable.
You ain't moving Shaq Mason. I mean, you're not like the guy that has value on this offensive line that you could move and get something in return is Laramie Tunsil. Now I don't know if that's. I said they can't. I don't know if that's doable or not. But I if I were the Texans, I would move on from Laramie Tunsil. I would play Titus Howard at left tackle if need be. Either work with Blake Fisher or find somebody else, and then you leave Juice Scruggs in the middle and figure out what you're going to do with the other two middle line O-line positions. So I would say two guys, and it would be Juice Scruggs and Titus Howard, and then you got to find the rest. Is Blake Fisher a guy? I don't know. You got to find two of your three interior offensive linemen. They got to find either way you go.
The Blake Fisher thing is interesting. To me, I think one of the tackles should be gone. And not just do I think should be, but I think it has to be a real thought of it, because, like, I don't know that Stephon Diggs is going to be back. And if he's not, then you lost a second-round pick with that, because that's what you traded him for, a second-round pick for, 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
And then you used a second-round pick, and these are valuable picks. These are guys that come out and play immediately. And then you used another second-round pick on a player that's not going to really play for the first 2 years, and Blake Fisher. When you're trying to get to another spot, like, that's why it almost feels like, to me, I wonder what's the thought is like. Do we need to get him in? He started the last few games of the year. Do we need to get him in? Does he? Like, that's the other part.
I mean, here's the thing with Blake Fisher. I would not be opposed to Blake Fisher at right tackle, Titus Howard at left tackle. And here's the reason behind it, right?
I think Titus had left. You would.
Yes, I would. If it were me, I would start with moving on. Again, one, he's got value. He's got a name. He's got a reputation. I think you can move him and get good return. Two, I don't believe that you're going to change Titus Howard, Juice Scruggs in this offensive line as long as Laramie Tunsil is doing Laramie Tunsil things, and he's got a C on his chest, and he's the highest paid offensive lineman, and he's setting the standard and the tone. I don't think that's doable. I just don't. And so for me, I think you get an offensive coordinator in here that if Blake Fisher is a tackle, will demand that a tight end and a running back have the ability to chip. Did you see Saquon Barkley pass protection this weekend, by the way? Like, have the ability to literally help the young fella instead of getting his way or leave him hanging out to dry in critical situations. Blake Fisher will be a better player.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Blake will be a better player because of that. So I would not be opposed to Blake Fisher being a tackle. I don't know how they feel about Blake in terms of moving forward, but I think the biggest move that can be made on this team and have the biggest impact on this offense as a whole is if they move on from Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, I think they got to move on from one of the tackles. I feel like Blake Fisher has to be in this, to me, at least given an opportunity in the start lineup because you've already, like I said, you've lost a second-round pick if you don't bring back Diggs, and I don't think you should. I think you were talking about Diggs in his 30s coming off an ACL. I don't know that's the move to pay him the money. Another one sitting on the bench, not doing anything for a group that gave up 63 sacks.
Yeah.
The previous year. So
you think about it, Ron, from a wide receiver position. I don't mean to pull your convo off in the ditch, but like I don't even know why I'm thinking of this guy, but it just like how lethal would C.J. Stroud be with a guy like James Palmer? Is it James Palmer?
Josh Palmer. From the Chargers.
Yeah, James is probably not a very quick receiver. He'd be more of a possession guy. I'm talking about Josh Palmer. A guy
championship
like that,
hair, though.
right? A guy like that as a two, right? Championship, like a 2 or 3, right? Like how lethal would this offense be with a bigger bodied guy that can separate, a guy that can go up and get a 50-50 ball, right? He's not Mike Evans, but he's a poor man's 50-50 ball go-getter. He's a poor man's big-bodied wide receiver, meaning he's not going to go make $30 million a year. But like, how nasty would CJ's offense be? Would CJ be in an offense where you got obviously Nico Collins, but your 2 or 3 receiver is a bigger-bodied, proven depth receiver like a Josh Palmer, like an aging Keenan Allen? Like somebody like that is, you can depend on him to be at the right depth. He can block the right shoulder. He goes up and make plays in the red zone. I mean, everything we've seen CJ work with beyond Nico Collins has been little dudes trying to create separation on routes that take forever. To me, that's the kind of move that, man, instead of the Diggs, like I like Diggs, but instead of the Diggs conversation, what about somebody like that is cheaper, but as much of a physical threat as a, get you. I can run you this nasty ass route at 15 yards, and I can shake the hell out of you and create separation when I come out of the cut. But I hope you can hold the ball that long.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And look, I want Tank to come back tomorrow, but just in the time being, I would like the Texans to go find a guy like that.
Yeah, and be honest with you, the draft is a spot that can happen. I mean, that can happen in the draft, which to me is why it's hard for me to see Diggs coming back. But yeah, this offensive line is wild, and honestly, I do feel like whoever is hired as the OC could be a telling point on what this O-line looks like. Like,
no question, because it better be. Right, it can't be go hire a guy that has a certain way of doing things, and then we just keep everything status quo because Nick signed him.
Or hire somebody that is in house that will
more the same,
or work with this